Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman. At The Reason We Learn, we aspire to be part of the solution. The purpose of this show is to take a good, honest, potentially painful look at the way kids are being educated. We know we can do better, and this is where we'll talk about how. Let's learn something. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman, and tonight's Dissident Dispatch is going to be great. I've got Deacon John Wilson III with me from the West Angeles EEP. What do I call it?
Education and Enrichment Program.
Education and Enrichment Program, right. My math guru. This is who you are to me. If you've watched the show before or the channel before, you know that he's been a guest here before as one of my teachers who comes on and talks to me about what's really going on in schools. And when it comes to math, this is the man, because you are really sort of, I would say, like embedded in the whole, teaching of math in California, where like so much happens when it comes to math. Before we get started, I would like to ask those of you who have already arrived to the live show, please like and share this broadcast so we can get as many people here with questions who might want to join us. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that as well. Double check your subscription, because I've had people tell me they got unsubscribed.
Oh, yeah.
But we've got a great show. Today we're going to talk about just what's going on in math in the country, but also some newsy stuff that's been coming up. That's, it's Dissident Dispatch. So we do talk about some of the news. First thing that I'm going to throw up at John to react to is actually a little bit on the older side. By old, I mean October. So I didn't get to do a show on this with you at the time. But I'm going to go ahead and throw it up there. This is from Undark. If you're not familiar with Undark, folks, Undark is a nonprofit, editorially independent digital magazine published by Knight Science Journalism Fellowship Program at MIT, founded in 2016, etc. So these are, some math geeks, basically, doing this. And in October, they published this. America's bad math scores are a problem, experts say. From STEM fields to national security, employers and experts raise new alarms about U.S. students' subpar math skills. So if we go down through here, one of the things that they're telling us is that, the advances in technology that are going to drive where the world goes in the next 50 years are going to come from other countries because they have the intellectual capital and we don't. This is a professor at University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. Studies the process of teaching and learning subjects, including math. There's already ample and dramatic evidence of this, he says. Several large overlooked reports, including from the Department of Defense, raise alarms about how... Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry, I had this way far away from my mouth. About how America's disdain for math is a threat to national security. One issued in July by the think tank, the Aspen Institute, warns that international adversaries are challenging America's longtime technological dominance, et cetera, et cetera. So this goes through, it's a really good article, but getting down to the scores specifically, first of all, math they're saying is necessary now for more and more careers. Doesn't surprise me. And they're saying that the scores, the math performance among elementary and middle school students has fallen by 6 to 15% below pre-pandemic growth rates, depending on the student's age. And then math scores in the National Assessment of Education Progress, the NAEP, fell by 9 points last year, the largest drop ever recorded, to their lowest in more than 3 decades. So I'm going to drop the link to this in the chat for y'all. So if you want to read the whole article, you can. But John, what is your reaction?
The national security part really leaps out at me. I know it's true. I have a parent that works with my students a little bit, that retired from the military, and he tells me, or she tells me, and they both did, that it's horrible that it's increasing the cost of weapon systems. They got to make all the computer stuff and the targeting systems for illiterates. This is a major problem. I see they mentioned national security here too. It's a major issue. And I saw an SAT prep I've never seen math so bad. And this means that either some college will let them go on and do it and they won't succeed in their careers, or they won't make it through college. And I see colleges are scrambling. I think we'll talk about it later because of this whole issue. It's more of a problem than people say. Now, I think people are waking up to it. I'm seeing articles, more and more articles about it. Um, it's something, and I see that I'm going to have to start spending money retraining advanced math students in basic math. I was having a great conversation with some of my Save Math buddies about how I should do it, because we can't ignore the students that are moving along. Just one half plus two thirds, Deb, they can't do. And you might say, well, come on now. No, they can't. And they can't understand basic. It is a major issue that I have deep concern for it. As an enricher in the city, it's going to cause me to spend more time and money. I have to, and divert from some of the advanced things I wanted to do. And then the national security issue, just China's going to really be driving this. I think let's just say it, they're going to be driving this thing technologically. They may not even have to fight us, Deb. They may just be able to overwhelm us mathematically.
Well, and even leaving aside like the literal kind of national security issues you talk about with weapon systems and so on, there's cybersecurity, there's economic the economic kind of warfare and the
Yes,
kind of just intellectual theft, like the stealing of ideas that used to be our biggest concern. Now it could just be stealing identity information, money information, like anything, because if we don't have people here who can do the cybersecurity for us and we become dependent on people from other countries to do our cybersecurity, to protect our data, to protect our infrastructure, everything that runs on computers, our electricity, our gas pipelines, like everything that we need to function as if a civilization needs people who understand math to protect it. Before
right.
anybody even wants to attack us, like, they could just attack us sitting thousands of miles away from a computer. And we certainly don't want to be dependent on other people to develop the protection systems for us.
Correct.
Um,
It's you're talking about quantitative reasoning, and that's a big component of math. It's the same part of the brain. Your quantitative reasoning comes from your basic math knowledge and your number sense, which you develop. And so this is why CSU came out and said, "Hey, we want 4 years of math, and the fourth year, if you don't want to do something with quantitative reasoning." Because they recognize that that's really the quadrant of math where your cybersecurity, your STEM, some of your STEM jobs are there, your app development and things like this.
right.
Do you understand quantities?
Sure. And I wanted to put this out there as kind of the big problem is Americans are not learning to do math. So we
Hmm.
have a generation now, at least one generation, that is so far behind in math that then when they get to be adults, like that's going to have a ripple effect, because the
Hmm.
teachers of math in the future have to come from the same cohort, and
Right.
the people that, so it's not just these little kids are at risk. And then you and I were corresponding back and forth during the week before the show about the
Hmm.
racial component. So in other words, what we hear about most now in the news when it comes to math performance is we hear about the underperformance of marginalized communities or historically marginalized students of color, and so on, right? And what concerns me is, I'm not gonna say, first of all, those statistics are real. There
Oh
is a
yeah.
disparity.
Oh yeah.
That said, what's interesting is that as long as we've been talking about racial disparities in academic performance, we've not been talking about how, for as long as we've talked about it and tried to work on it, that the gap has been closing, but not as you would think. Rather than bringing the students of color upward, the white students are going like this,
Right.
right? So the gap is closing, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
And now, is the gap has the gap always been with us? Has there always been such a giant gap in terms of racial performance in math?
No, maybe since I started, but not since I was a student. Look, listen. when we had in our inner cities, for whatever reason, the large, great segregated high schools, with segregation certainly was not all that great. I think Soul and Jason Riley have great writings on this. By the way, I love Jason Riley's book. Stop Helping Us. It's an
Yeah.
amazing book. I
Yeah.
was reading it over again this week. But that's one of the points he makes. We were producing great. My father was a great computer programmer. He came out of school in high school back in the 40s, and he worked for National Bureau of Standards and one other place I forgot about now. It was a champion programmer way back in the days, with early software, and it's probably where I got it in my genes. But so there was a time where we were producing those kind of people. But our families in the Black community, I'm being very, very honest here. Our families were way more stable, Deb. Uh, the loss of Black fathers, which I think was a product, one of the unfortunate products of the Great Society, and then the damage that sending a whole generation of young Black males over to Vietnam and the effect there. All of that stuff came out of the 60s, and by the time we get to the 70s and 80s, we begin to start to see the effect of not having fathers. I mean, the federal government doesn't make a good daddy for a family when mama's getting a check, and I know. And then what happened was, Deb, but I won't belabor this, forces within the elite community, progressive community, began to say that you don't need a father. That still is floating around, that mama can handle it herself, and and
Right.
and we're losing a sense of discipline, Deb. Look, in my house, if I didn't do my homework, I was scared of my dad. My dad was a harsh dude. I was telling my wife that the other day, reminding her of that. Great, great guy. I mean, look back now, I'm thankful, but man, I didn't want to cross him. And I'm not seeing that a lot. And when I see it in the Black community today, I'm always so happy. And this is why I'm right now trying to find a bunch of dads who are committed to developing alpha males. We got to
Right.
develop males to rebuild this community. I don't know if you read Delano Squires. He's in Heritage. He's really a big guy on this subject. I'm very distracted in a positive way by building Black family, but I don't think there are enough people like me in the Black community. There are some, and I'm
Sure.
finding them, and it's exciting when I find them all
Sure.
across the country. But is there enough? Now,
Right.
I think you got something though, Deb. I hadn't thought of it that way till you mentioned it earlier in the other day. Um, it is an earlier broadcast. Yeah, I want to talk about later. I've been thinking about that, and I think that the decline in the quality of math teachers,
Yeah.
because they're doing everything but really teach teachers.
Yes.
They have all these agendas, is hurting the Black community too,
Yes.
hurting all of them, and then certainly pushing down that level of everybody. And that's an additional problem we have that I think we're going to talk about later. What it's brought into the classroom and how it's leading to so-called equity math, dumb stuff like that. Excuse me, I shouldn't call. Well, yeah, dumb stuff.
Well, I mean, one could argue that it is kind of dumb. I mean, and I don't say that to sound just like pejorative. If something is smart, when you've taken a look at multiple factors causing the problem you're trying to fix, and you have really evaluated whether the way you're doing something now is one of those causes. So, for example, if you started with traditional math education, the
Yeah,
kind of stuff that, maybe I learned in the 70s, let's say,
sure.
in terms of elementary school, it was more about sort of drilling the skills and the early stuff like multiplication tables and
Tables and drills and
memorizing things so that by
backlets,
third
seven
grade,
plus nine, 8 plus 3, whatever.
all that. So you had your basic math facts, your base 10. There were certain things you just kind of knew rote. You just knew them rote.
Right.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was the most fun thing on planet Earth. Although kids like to learn things, they like to know stuff that they didn't know the day before. And certainly when you're little, you're more inclined to do that. Like I know this new stuff that you don't know, mom or dad, or whatever. I can rattle off facts I
Yeah.
didn't know yesterday. So they're more inclined to do that. Um, and I don't think the case was made adequately that wasn't working, that it didn't work. So in other words, I think, maybe when scores started to fall off or kids stopped doing well, they immediately went to, well, it's because the class is boring, or it's because this is the old fashioned way of doing it. Or maybe they didn't even diss it at all. They just had a reason because, when you go to graduate school for education, which was also a relatively new thing starting in, like maybe eh, 20s, 30s time frame, that I've got to research. I've got to come up with I've got to publish new things. I've got to have new ways of teaching, or else I'm not, what do I get my PhD in education? So I think they were trying to invent new ways to
Right.
do stuff.
Right.
And when it comes to math that has worked for thousands of years, like a certain way, the new stuff might end up being dumb stuff because you're breaking what it wasn't broken. And then you add the dissolution of the Black family, right?
Yeah,
Then you
I think
add the other
so.
stuff.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I don't think it's
Absolutely.
a single cause. I think there's a lot of factors. So I call it dumb because I don't know that the purpose for changing it was
Mhm.
really articulated it well, and if there was a proper case. And then I think the things they came up with of let's play and let's do and let's, like make it all fun, and maybe you learn it, maybe you don't. And, oh, you didn't learn it. It's okay. You learn it later. Forgetting, of course, that math is kind of cumulative, like the
Right.
skill, the knowledge builds on itself. So if you miss something by third grade, it's going to get harder real fast. And then you add to that the teachers, and you just hinted at this a moment ago, the teachers are not subject matter experts,
No.
are they?
Yeah, your show on that. I'm sorry to I put you on the
No,
spot in
no,
a big
that's
way like this. I was
it is.
riveted to that show. I think I saw it 1.5 times, Deb. You make some really great points in there. Yeah, I saw that. Uh, they want they see the teacher as a community organizer almost, or having a. And I think that's getting into the math class. I
Oh,
really
for
think
sure.
that's what's happening. And I never thought it would get to science and math, Deb. But you're
I
right.
never did either.
I
I gotta
talked to
admit.
yeah, I talked to a math teacher that teaches at LACES about a month ago. Because again, they send their children to me for extra help in public school. Anyway, and she told me what they taught her in math. She's a fourth grade math teacher. She said it was about 1/3 actually how to teach math, and the rest was other stuff. You know,
Right.
the young progressive mind,
That's right.
the role of identity. And these are not related to math at all, but yet they were part of her
Yeah.
single subject and credential.
Yep.
I don't know, Deb. I think you have something there, and you might have to get a bodyguard if you push that too much, because I know the unions
Well,
love that stuff.
yeah, well, and some people in the chat have been mentioning it. Okay, so here Talking Story says, let
Hmm.
me find where this comment was about some teachers unions are telling teachers AI is going to do the math.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
then maybe
Mhm.
then we have some teachers who need to understand how AI becomes AI. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah. That's interesting, Deb. I just today had a meeting I can't get off my mind with the new dean of education. Listen to this: the new dean of education. Shout out to him, James Satterfield, at Boise State University, which you might know is one of my 10 favorite schools. Sent a lot of my students there, and him and I were sitting up there talking about, that they need more teachers. And I took a look at their curriculum. You would like it, Deb. The way they teach math teachers in Idaho is way different than what you described. I tell you, yeah, you're on to something there. And I think that, we need to get students to see what happens to students is they see their teachers and their teachers don't appear to be proficient. It doesn't motivate them to be teachers. And that's why we're seeing
yeah.
fewer teachers from the Black community who want to be teachers. They don't see it, the teachers are that effective. And that's sad. But yeah,
Well,
that you're right. But you got something there about content. What's the content of it?
and I think they've seen a few too many movies about AI and not don't understand the reality of AI. In other words, that
Well, that's
we're
right. Yeah, he was talking about
yeah, we're
teaching
not at the
teachers.
point
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, why don't we
we're
teach? Right, right, exactly.
we're not at the point where AI can program itself. Like,
No,
we're not there yet. And
no,
let's hope we don't get there anytime soon, because I don't think we're philosophically and ethically sound enough to
no.
let that run, like wild. I just AI can do some pretty cool stuff, but if you don't know, as Adrian saying, how are you going to do computer modeling and analysis of anything to figure
Exactly.
out
No, you
that,
won't. You won't,
what
Adrian. Adrian, you won't. And however, I do think, Adrian and Deb, I do think that we might. I use AI, Chat GPT. I use it for my personal to organize myself.
right,
I'll say, what are my different ways of thinking about something? And that
right,
might be a way. Like this summer, I asked it, what should I be teaching in my advanced math class to see if I still was the fairest of them all. And it gave me some ideas I hadn't thought of, but I would never use it to teach. I don't
right,
think it's going to be able to do a lesson. I did the organization of the lessons,
right.
but it certainly helped me. I think we can need to learn. I was telling the guy I cracked up today, the dean. This is kind of like, I know it's not a politically correct word, but it's correct here. We need to treat AI as a slave. It's not going to do anything for us we can't do for ourselves. We shouldn't. But I think that it'd be a great thing to use as a tool ourselves. And so
Right.
schools of education might teach teachers to use it for themselves. They might.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there are teachers right now I'm hearing who's having their, telling their kids it's fine to use Chat GPT to like write your essays, and that, which is
Oh,
very concerning because then the kids are not learning to write. But when it comes to math, um, even, my eldest daughter who's in college has found this because she's been taking a business math class, an accounting class. She was taking a microeconomics class, and they all require math. And she
yeah.
thought, even though she was a really good math student, she really was, she made it through, pre-calc and so forth. She struggled a little with pre-calc, but she did it, the old-fashioned way. But now she's thinking like, okay, so if I can't figure something out, I'll go search it up on the internet and it'll explain it to me. I'll find a YouTube video, like, if I missed something in class, and what she's realizing is
Mm-hmm.
that's it's not the kids are it's been oversold.
Right. You still need a good teacher.
Calculators,
Sure.
AI,
Sure.
YouTube. Teachers relied on it so much for them when they were in elementary school, middle school, and high school, that we've got kids going off to college who haven't had the blessing of encountering you, um, who it's been oversold. They think like it's fine. I'll just search it up on the internet and then, I'll
Yeah.
figure it out. I'll just, in an hour or so, I could just learn whatever I missed, what I wasn't good at. And, I'll do well enough to get. And even she's realizing, as a, smart kid, good math student, or whatever, the limitations of doing that. That's
Right.
really not gonna do it for you because, and this is sort of common sense once you think about it, it's overwhelming. Which of the 10,000 videos about how to do this kind of problem are you going to choose? Is this going to be a good investment of your 10
Yeah.
minutes
That's
to an
why.
hour,
Yeah.
or a
Right.
bad one? Is it
Right.
going to actually, is the person on the other end of the video going to be like, and then you take this problem and you do that, and so you can't pay attention because it's really boring? Or are they going to speak with such a, in another language so you don't understand it? And she's realized, she's like, oh my God, now I'm overwhelmed
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not like there's one source that I go to and there it all is.
Yes.
I now have to choose. And the only people who are going to be capable of choosing which resource is the good one to help me with this problem are people who already kind of get it pretty well, because they can sort of read between the lines in the description of the video or read between the lines of the website and go, okay, this will help me. For example, when I look up things to help me with like grammar, when I'm teaching grammar to kids
Right.
in
That's where
my
it's useful. Right.
in my tutoring. So I know it really pretty well. I like
Yes. And you
98% of
know.
it.
And you know. And you know what to look for.
I know exactly what to look for. So I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, I know it so well. I can't really, I mean, you should be able to explain everything you know so well, but sometimes to put it in words that a
Mm,
middle schooler can understand, you're like, I need a tool, but I know exactly how to go and quickly drill down to find the teaching tool I need because I know the material in
right.
the first dang place. So we're overselling tech to the kids. And I think they're going, yeah, I need to learn that.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm not
Yeah.
going to need to know this math. Who cares?
Exactly.
Whatever. And I don't think that is, I don't think that anyone is disputing that when they have teaching methods like this thing here with this Pittsburgh
Yeah. I
will
read
change
that.
math instruction to be more equitable. And the little video in here I don't know if you watched this. I sent you this link. Did you watch this little news
Yeah,
report?
I watched it.
Okay. So I'm gonna play this for the audience just so
Yeah,
that
go
they
ahead.
can hear, what they're saying, and then I'll have you react to it.
Yeah, I took some notes to it over
that
here.
has
Go ahead.
gotten national attention.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Public Schools hiring a consultant to teach a new method of instructing kids.
It's intended to be anti-racist, and what some find curious is that the subject involved is math. KDK lead investigator Andy Sheehan talked with the district leader who recommended it.
No matter how math is taught, 1 + 1 will always equal 2. But Pittsburgh Public Schools is now offering what it calls an anti-racist approach, saying it is trying to address racial inequity in math classes. We think of math as, addition, subtraction, multiplication, sort of an objective reality. How can math be racist?
We're talking about really a mindset, and it's an approach. So whether we use the term anti-racist or we talk about racial equity, it's the same.
Last week, the school board approved a $50,000 contract to the consulting group Quetzal to provide workshops.
I just want to stop there for just a mo. $50,000
They're cleaning up. Deb, you're in the wrong business. Oh my goodness.
I would never put my head on the pillow and sleep at night again. I'd have no, I'd hate
Hey,
myself.
Long Beach just paid $125,000 for that.
So
Down
we
here,
got,
right here in Long Beach.
but look what they're providing: workshops to teach the teachers how to engage the students of color. So we have teachers that are paid, and then they're going to get teaching and how to teach math. So aren't they supposed to be experts at that already?
Correct.
And they're getting it from a private education consulting firm to come in, and it's specifically for students of color. Well, what about students that are not of color?
Well, the idea here is, let's see, you're going to engage students of color now as if there's something different. This whole thing, that's why I don't like this whole thing, Deb, when people say so-and-so looks like me, looks like him, or they're all human beings. I mean, it's like almost these students of color are different. They're like Martians or something. We have to learn how to engage them. Yeah, that's probably the word we'll use when the Martians show up, right? We have to engage them.
Yes, we have to engage the Martians.
Yeah, I mean, how about just loving them, caring for them, and teaching them? I saw this and I cringed.
Okay, because he says it's a mindset, and it's math. Math is a universal language. Now, let's give them, what Charles Love always does. Let's give them their argument.
Yeah.
Let's give them their argument. We as we stipulated at the outset of the show, there is an achievement difference. Between the Black students or the students of color and the
there's an achievement difference, right?
Is an achievement difference. So that is a real thing. But aren't they deciding why though? They're deciding
They're taking a jump. They're making a jump.
Yeah. They're making a jump, and then they're saying well, we have to engage them differently. Now I'm going to play the rest of it, and I want the audience to listen to the implicit, what the guy is saying, that why he believes that the kids don't do well at math.
Jobs for district math teachers to more fully engage students of color in learning math and hopefully improve performance. According to the most recent test scores, 11.6% of the district's African-American grade students scored proficient in math, compared to 47.5%.
Again,
yeah, they're excited about this 47.
11.6% of the Black students. That's obviously a very poor performance. But I'm not too jazzed about below 50% for the white students.
No, I'm not either.
Wrong with the way they're teaching math, period.
It's, I would say if we all assume 75 is okay, you got that's 28 below, right? Percent below if you've got a percent scale.
Yeah.
You can say, well, that part is the deficiencies in teaching of math in general. And this other 11 is this failure to really understand the students. Okay, these math students are probably just need more attention. I might agree with that.
Yeah.
And what happened to the old days where we work with students differently when they needed to be developed quicker or
Well, we
more
can't
deeper?
track them, John. That would be
Yeah, yeah, I
we
know.
can't track them. That will hurt their self-esteem.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So, and that's
That's why we
something.
can't put them in a separate group. And
Now, you're a math teacher. Please explain to the audience whether you think that a certain amount of ability tracking works to help students. When I was teaching elementary school, and we're talking now long time ago, and I did teach first and second grade, but I felt like it helped. I felt like having kids
yeah,
go at their pace in a group of kids, where it's like you're all kind of roughly going at that pace, and then the kids who could go faster could go faster. And we didn't call them the smart kids and the dumb kids. We're not
no.
idiots. We just told them, like, you're going to be in math group 1 and you're going to be in math group 2, and it's not, the kids figured it out. But because we treated them the same, in other words, our sense of attention, our attention to them, our caring for them, and including the material we were teaching was the same. We didn't give them slower
Exactly.
material.
That's what I say.
We gave them the same material. We just had different ways of going about explaining it to them,
Sure.
and we let them go at a different pace.
See, I'm
And
all for that. Yeah.
what is wrong with that? They're acting like it's a
Nothing wrong with
terrible, terrible thing, because what they seem to believe is this fallacy that wherever you are now is where you'll stay. So, for
it. No,
example,
it's
if
kinda-
you are not catching on to your math facts in first grade as quickly as some other kids, if we break you into groups, you will forever be in that slow place. What they're missing is maybe the kid needs an extra week, and then they'll take off like a rocket.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that
I've
even
seen it too.
just after school enrichment. I see it, and in the summer I see it too. Like if I have a algebra prep group and I do testing, identify those who need more, I just give them more attention, Deb. And by the time I get to the end of just a 8-week summer, Deb, a lot of those ones who start out lower are up with the other ones, just behind the other ones.
It's just such a fallacy to believe that if you break the kids into groups, now I will grant you, if you do it in such a way that it's like the whole year. So in other words, if you give a kid a test in third grade and you say, like, okay, these kids scored below this score, so we're going to put them in the class that is slower, or like the whole year. And
Yeah.
then we're going to put these kids in the class that goes faster for the whole year.
Mhm.
Then you could take a problem and magnify it. That I will agree. But if you had subject matter experts teaching every class in elementary school,
Yes.
such that the person teaching math to the third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders, even going on into
Knows
the
how to
middle
do
school,
that. They have to know how
they
to do
know
that.
how to differentiate the instruction at least to 2 small groups or 3 small groups, as opposed to then you can move them around. Okay, you get it now. You can go over to this group and you guys can.
Yes. Now,
This is doable.
when we were learning math, didn't you see that? I saw it happening with
I
my
saw it
students.
happen. That's what I was
That's
taught
how I
to
learned.
do.
That's how I learned.
That's how I learned.
I,
I
I,
even still needed to be in the slower group longer than some, but it wasn't my core strength. And that's another thing. They've decided, people like these that we're talking about right now, and people behind the math framework in California,
sure.
they talk about how there's no such thing as a kid who's not that good at math, or just like inherently not that good at math. And I'm sorry, I beg to differ. That's not to say that there's such a thing as a kid who just absolutely can't learn any math. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that some kids absolutely are gifted, and some kids absolutely just pick up math the way some other kids pick up vocabulary. That it's just something that they have. Like, there are kids who are very good at music. They can pick up an instrument and they can learn it right away. Kids really good at languages, they can learn it right away. There are kids who are very talented at artwork. They can
Correct.
paint beautiful pictures.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it's like they refuse to acknowledge talent, and that that talent also works in math and science.
It's the same
And
way.
it's the same way. And so they're like so refusing to accept that they'll say, like, no, we can't. In the writers of the framework, so we've got to get past thinking that some people are just good at math. That is not true. And I'm like, but it
Yeah,
is
they don't like that.
demonstrably true.
Yes. It's
And
demonstrably
it never
true.
bothered me as a student of math who was not altogether that good. I mean, I was a little jealous. I was like, gosh, I wish it was as easy for me. But then I would look at them in history class and English class when I was the one like this,
Right.
and they were sitting there like, What? Tell you a
What?
story. I dated somebody for a very long time who went to the Air Force Academy.
Ah,
And in the senior year, I went there for 100th night. You know, they have this big dance, whatever. And
no.
I spent the day going to classes with him. I was like, well, I'm going to go to your classes. And I went to 2 classes. One was the English class. They were reading Canterbury Tales. And there are all these Air Force cadets, right, reading Canterbury Tales. And I'd read them already and so forth. And at in an honors level English class. And so the professor is asking questions and there's no hands going up. Everybody's like looking at each other, looking around. So I'm sitting there, the guest in the room, not uniformed, like, can I answer the question? So I answered a couple of questions and I felt so good about myself. I'm like, Air Force cadets, Air Force Academy is so hard to get into. And I just answered questions. And then I went to physics class. Then I went to physics class.
Yeah.
And they might as well have been speaking Martian.
Right.
But all the kids, they're all like this. They're like, oh, it's a blah, 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 blah. They're coming up to the board. They're doing all this stuff. And I'm sitting there like, and this is why they fly jets and I don't. Right? So,
Exactly.
we're good at different things. They were in the Air Force Academy. Knowing Canterbury Tales is not necessarily as important as understanding physics.
Uh,
So, that we've got to accept the fact that we aren't each going to be great at every single thing. And maybe it's actually good for all of us as, a country, whatever, a civilization, if we help individuals develop their individual gifts and skills to the best of their ability,
mhm.
rather than fixating on, no, everybody has to be equally good at basic math. It's
Everybody has
like,
to be the same.
they can't
Yeah,
be the same. They're
it's
not
a
going to be the
problem.
same.
It's a problem. I think back to because even colleges have sort of figured that out. Good college math departments will say, "What will that teacher say at the very beginning of the year to the freshman? All right, here's my office hours, but here's where our math lab is. You should visit it if you need extra help," because they recognize that some students
Yeah.
will need extra help, but they're not going to change the curriculum. We're still going to chapter 2. We're still
Right.
going to chapter 3. And oh, by the way, if you need help, it's over there. So even in college, it's just a more advanced version of what we're discussing right now.
Exactly. And then
Mhm.
this goes on. I'm going to play a little bit more. Let's see.
Sure.
Percent of white students. The district has long sought to close that gap and says it will now be taking this approach.
It's one thing to say that, African American students in the district are underperforming. It's another thing to say that the instruction by math teachers is racist.
We don't use any language to call any approach racist, but what we do is we talk about approaches that are anti-racist.
According to Assistant Superintendent Dr.
Well, he's
Sean
really
McNeil,
called them
this
racist.
means addressing historic inequities in educating students by exposing them to Black professionals in STEM fields to tell students of the African American legacy in mathematics, emphasizing its practical applications in a hands-on, welcoming way. And McNeil says the emphasis is on concepts and reasoning rather than putting importance on getting the answer right.
Is this not sort of dumbing down the the math curriculum to say, hey, you didn't get the right answer, but, close enough?
At times, there is a right or wrong answer,
At
but we don't
times.
just emphasize the right or wrong answer, we emphasize the journey.
The journey.
Journey.
The journey. We don't emphasize the right or wrong answer, just the journey. And then the other part that I heard was, exposing them to the African American legacy in math. Okay. And
So, yeah.
okay. If you'd come to me and said, as a math student who was struggling, let me tell you about some great women in math. We're going to teach you about the great
Yeah.
women mathematicians. I would have been like, and make me feel worse. Like, how is this helping me? This is not helping me.
Yeah, I often say, like, CSU, we had a summer math program, and that's the one part I didn't do directly in the class. I just set up a separate program for that they could learn about, because I think it's helpful. They might like to learn that, but it's not part of the math class.
It doesn't help you learn math.
No.
History, maybe, or some other kind of thing. But
It really should be part of a Black culture class or
sure,
Black history. And I think it's okay to learn that offline. It's actually quite fascinating to look at mathematics historically in Africa with the pyramids. I know all about that. But I don't think it should be in the math class.
I just think it could backfire.
Yes.
because the message, buried inside of that is something like Benjamin Banneker could do it, so could you. And you're
Yeah.
sitting there, if you're struggling, you're like, are you joking? Like, I'm not Benjamin Banneker. Are you seriously saying that because he had black skin just like you, and he
Yeah.
was really good
That's
at
not true.
math?
No. No.
Like, you can do it. You are both black, and he was great
Yeah.
at math. I mean, that to me is like a
It's a
really
little
weird
condescending,
way.
you know.
Yeah.
I just think, showing them more care, concern, and going drilling down and teaching it and getting back to some of the traditional things that work with certain math, because you can see they don't have their basic skills when they moved along. And,
No,
and we're
for sure.
just not getting into that. And it's hurting, black students probably disproportionately because of the factors we talked about earlier that are cultural
Yep.
and the home
Well,
life stuff.
and
That's
that's an
another whole thing.
interesting point is when you you give them, sort of, I think their their hearts might be in the right place, as you point out. These are interesting things to know about Black history. It's certainly nice to have role models and so on and so forth. Period. For math, it doesn't matter what color they are, but if you're already if you've got other things going on, like you don't have a dad at home, or, mom is struggling, or, there's other issues. You have to walk home past a bunch of people trying to pull you into gang activity. Like, who knows what else is going on in your life?
Right.
And if these factors of this, as you point out, the sort of subcultural factors are impacting your learning, or I wouldn't say it's not even the learning, it's your focus on school as a
Focus.
priority.
Yeah.
It's just your focus. We all make choices every day. And I read the other day that it's not even the choices, it's your habits. So if they're not developing habits that are, making them inclined to do well in math class, let's say, you can come in with all kinds of newfangled curricula, and that's not really going to fix it. And as you point out, the habits are developed and reinforced at home. They're developed because you observe your parents with these habits. You see the fruits of the habits. Mom and dad get up in the morning, go to work. Oh, look, money shows up. Like these kinds of things make an impression on you without you having to be taught, if that makes sense.
Right.
You
And I
absorb
also
it.
think that we need to go back and rely on another important positive fact in our culture, which is resilience. I mean,
Yep.
there was you and I were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Why did Black folks succeed back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s in a different way? And even right after I was just talking to my wife about it. Right after slavery, within 20 years, you see Black folks moving to the front. Now, not all of them, but they're beginning to succeed.
That's right.
And of course, we got the 1876 and when the withdrawal of Union troops from the South and all that, and then the migration to the cities had us. It was like a rebooting of the universe. But then you saw resilience again. You saw the Black Wall Street and various other business entities. So there's a resilience in our people, the Black community. That's part of America. The resilience
Yes.
of the Black culture. And I don't think we're unleashing it with these approaches of equity. And let's just make it easy for the poor little Black kids, and let's put them back on the plantation now, Deb. But we got to do
It
that. I think that's part of it, and I don't find that very effective.
No. And I think what I as a teacher, I really believed that I would get from my students what I expected from them. That's not to say, you know, every time or whatever. Obviously, kids have their bad days, their good days, whatever.
Mhm.
But if I came into the class with high expectations for each and every one of them, at least for them to reach their personal best every single day,
Mhm.
and carried that in with me, that they responded better than. And I didn't actually test it the other way, but I observed other teachers doing it the other way. And it's not to say that the teachers weren't effective at having their students love them. So, for example,
Oh
they
yeah, that's so
the
important.
students liked those teachers. They didn't dislike those teachers. They thought they were very nice, and I'm not saying they disliked me, but they can look effective to the naked eye because they're beloved, or because the kids,
Right.
especially in elementary school, it's harder to tell. Where the rubber meets the road is when you get to middle school. That's when when the kids start playing the push me pull you game of like, I don't actually have to listen to you. You know what I mean? I've figured out over the last 5 years I can maybe push some buttons, and I'm going to try, because I'm trying to figure out, what I can get away with. I'm in
Right.
puberty, peer groups. I got to show off to my peer group. I got to be this. I got to be that. Their priorities shift away from, whatever, and into something more adolescent. And that's where the method of like, welcome to my class and I'm your bestest buddy.
Yeah, the
It's
best buddy thing. Yeah.
it stops holding like, it doesn't even keep them from acting out. That's where you have to be tougher. And when I went in to teach a 6th and 7th grade class, it wasn't math, but it was debate. And I knew walking in, like, this is 6th grade. This is a city school. A small group, and they were electing to take this class, but they thought it was going to be a cakewalk. They thought it was like, I get to just like talk, it's debate. I just get to argue, right? I don't have to do anything. And the first class, I'm already like, all right, these are the rules of the class. This is what can happen. If you do this, you'll be removed. If you do that, this is, I just like lay down the law. And a couple of kids were looking at me like, oh my God. And I was teaching as a volunteer, so they couldn't fire me. Like, they could be like, you're being too mean. So, but I had a couple kids come up to me, couple girls. And this is predominantly Black school. There were other kids
Okay.
there, and they came up to me and they said, thank you. They were like, you're the best teacher now that I have.
Yeah.
Right now, you're
I'm
the
not
best teacher I have.
surprised.
And they were like, and I said, well, thank you. Like, why do you say that? And like, you're not going to let them get away with anything, because they were pointing out some of the boys in particular, but some
Right.
of the kids in the class.
Right.
I don't mean to sound sexist, but boys have more energy, and you can't just
No, yeah, you can't let them run over you.
you can't let them run over you, or they will give them an inch and that's it. And there was even one girl who was a little bit like that, but they were confident that like, I now feel like I can learn something in this class because you're like holding it together. And I wouldn't let people treat other people who are trying to learn. I was like, you're interfering with their learning. You need to go in the hall.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to do that. You weren't. And a couple
Mm-hmm.
times I had administrators come and put the kid back in my room and say, you can't do this. You can't have them outside the hall. I'm like, so this was a problem. But my point was that with the teaching of math, which really requires focus, doesn't it? I mean, you really, even
Yes.
if you're quite good at math, you can't be distracted constantly.
Yes. And you always
You
got to
need,
be, yeah. You always got to be sensing where students are, how they're accepting. I find myself, even when I'm teaching SAT, when I in person, I'm watching cues from the students on how they're getting, and I'm asking them what they see and making them respond back. And these are all skillful ways of showing concern. And students appreciate that. They appreciate when you don't let them lay back and just not participate and engage you. I like to engage. I like them to engage me in a math class. I like to be engaged, and I like to have them be challenged too. But you need a teacher that knows the material well enough where they can do that with students and listen to them and see where they're
right.
at. And these are fine skills that I'm not hearing as much in classes the way I do it myself, or I've seen it when I was coming up.
That's
Not
right.
at all. Not at all. You're right. The best teachers are perceived that way. They may be a little tough in the classroom, but definitely those are the teachers I like. I didn't like the gooey, sticky ones. I'm here to help and all that. I didn't. No.
Well, and you can't wait. You can't be passive. Like you
Right.
said, you're picking up body language. You're looking at their facial expressions. If they're slumping in the chair, if they're looking a little like they're staring off into space,
Correct.
especially teenagers, and especially now in this period of history where
Yes.
it's super extra uncool to be like, I don't get it. Can you help me? And there's
Yeah.
anyone else in the
Definitely.
room. That's not going to happen. So the teacher has to be able to pick up on those subtle cues and go to the desk of the student,
Yes.
the individual student, and start saying like, all right, so how's it going?
Let me
Let's
see
work
that.
on
Yeah. Let me see
let's
that.
work on some stuff. Where are you with this and so forth? And really kind of, quietly, put them on the spot, but just like, let's see what you got. Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've noticed in the last year or two since pandemic, I used to, when I'm tutoring them or helping them with their homework, jump to the whiteboard. But now you know what I do? I just sit in the middle of them. And as they're working, looking at what they're doing, going around sitting, I can make a chair beside each one so I can move to that chair and work with them. I think in the classroom, they need to do that.
Well, and that's the thing is they talk about engagement. And to me, it's not just Black students. It's like all students right
I think
now
it's all of them.
are having these challenges as far as making eye contact and asking the teacher for help. And when it comes to math, if you don't do that, there's no top-down method that I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, where you can just, this is the method that they'll grasp.
No.
This is how they'll
Depends
get
on the
it.
class, yeah.
Or this is the way they're going to volunteer that they don't understand it. I think the same rules apply across the board, except even more so now. The kids are not going to be likely to tell you, I don't get it in front of the whole class. They're not likely to tell you this doesn't make sense.
No.
I mean, my kids, they were doing all the newfangled stuff with the strategies. 5 different strategies to solve one problem. And they had to learn them all. And they just show them all. And they just show all their work. And my kids would come home and go, Mom, this is so boring and time consuming. Like, can't I just do it the way you taught us? You know, with just linear math, you know, like just do it. We carry the one, you know, like, so I would teach them stuff and then they'd go to school and they'd have to show it with the boxes and the this and the that and the other. And they'd be like, I hate it. I'm so bored and I don't want to do it. And I said, well, did you say anything to the teacher? They look at me like I have 10 heads. What, are you crazy? What? I'm not saying anything to the teacher. So the teachers are blissfully unaware. They're
See,
like,
I would love for the teacher to be aware that your daughter does things right another way. That they should have that knowledge. It's a cool
in fact,
thing.
they got marked wrong. If they did it that way,
I love that when
instead
they
of
would
the
get it
new
right.
strategy,
I would never
they get in
tell them they're
trouble.
wrong. No, I wouldn't do that. It's because the teacher only knows one way to do it. They're scared they can't oversee it.
Yeah.
I think of it this way, Deb. I've become addicted to these wireless earbuds, you know, and I noticed something that if I'm using my wireless earbuds with my phone, you know, listen to music or podcasts or whatever, and when I want to get on the computer to listen, I got to connect with the computer. I go in and wait, the computer's not connected. But when I hear those words, when I go to the computer and I pair it up, I have to take the other one off and disconnect it and then connect it. I hear that word connected. I think teachers need to spend the first few minutes rather than doing this silly mindfulness meditation stuff. Just make sure you're connecting with your students. They should know that your girl has that level of understanding. And I would have moved her. I would have been challenging her in a different way, right in the classroom.
Right.
And letting her know, hey, I see you're valid.
All they learn when you do this other stuff is the kids who get it learn, I can tune out.
Right.
I don't need to be paying attention right now. I can just switch off and not pay attention while all the other kids are doing.
Can't let that happen. Yeah.
And this is just the worst message. Or they learn that, you know, getting the right answer doesn't really matter. So not only can I tune out to the lesson, I can like half-ass the homework. And what happens is they coast. So they get, you know, an A or B, just kind of like phoning it in. Why should I work if I don't have to work? And the kids who aren't working, or the kids who are like getting it wrong or getting the same grade I'm getting for getting it right, they talk about sometimes the right answer and sometimes not. And then, like I said to you before, they get to college and suddenly it's like, uh-oh.
Yes.
I can't coast anymore.
Can't learn new things, can't coast, right?
And there are now colleges saying they've got people coming in. I got to find that article actually, but I wanted to talk about this one. Oregon again. Now this is again October.
I know about that. I noticed that when this story came out, I thought it was a misprint in the headline.
You would think.
I thought it was a misprint.
I thought it was like Babylon B.
Harm. I
was like, this can't be real.
It's harming students of color. This is students of color to have requirements for graduation.
And it just doesn't even make sense. And the vote, so the Board of Education decided this unanimously.
Yeah, during the
extending
pandemic,
the positive blah, blah, blah that began. This was the beginning of the pandemic, which
then they extended
I still don't think it made sense. But to extend it is ridiculous. Like, that's add insult to injury. Then they say The vote went against the desires of dozens of Oregonians who submitted public comments. Dozens, only dozens,
Yeah, I was amazed.
insisting the standard should be reinstated, and so forth and so on. Opponents argue that pausing the requirements devalues an Oregon diploma, giving students with low academic skills extra. Of course it does. But
Yeah.
leaders in the Oregon Department of Education and members of the state school board said requiring all students to pass one of several standardized tests or create an in-depth assignment their teacher judged as meeting state standards was a harmful hurdle for historically marginalized students, a misuse of state tests, and did not translate to meaningful improvements in students' post-high school success. According to whom?
Right.
According to whom does that happen? So now, if they were having them do some kind of big project and that didn't make a difference, if that was like an arbitrary busy work project, okay. But how can you not administer some kind of a proficiency test that says like, all right, you're good to go, you can graduate?
Yeah, they
How do you
eliminated.
not do that?
Yeah, they eliminated it here in California. I just shook my head because they eliminated because of all the immigrant students originally. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having some kind of proficiency test, and most states do, by the way. It's
They
kind of
do.
an anomaly here on the West Coast
Yeah,
that we're not
it's
doing.
so incredibly
It's
strange
just
to
a
me.
minimum level. I think, as I recall, it was like 8th grade or something, like 8th
Yeah.
grade level type stuff in that particular
And
test.
I just don't get it why, this passed unanimously. Like it barely even had a fight. It
Right.
just makes no sense to me.
The governor there was pushing it too hard, pushing it very hard too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't recall her name, but she was really. I saw
Oh,
her in an interview.
Kate something or other.
Yeah,
Kate, what the heck is her name? I don't know Oregon politics
yeah,
all that well. But the main thing is just that we're also now seeing people go off to college, and when they get there,
here we
the
go.
the professors, the teachers are saying, we've got some we've got
Pass.
we've got kids we've got to re-educate with math,
Right.
and that here it is. I found the article. This is the one I wanted to show.
Yeah,
It was in the College Fix, and
that's
I'm
right.
gonna
That's where it was. Right. And I saw
yeah,
another article about too that good old Michael sent to me. Similar subject.
math professors, incoming students can't even add fractions or subtract.
Yeah, I actually did a video on this too, but not this article about this concept.
Well, tell
Because
me about it. Tell me.
I called up the professors that were involved in it. So some professors that, let's see what the schools they were highlighting. I think it was Stanford was one of them. The incoming
Really?
freshmen weren't proficient. And so they have a summer workshop for them. And they were
Whoa.
amazed by what kids who took calculus didn't know about math.
Yeah, it
They
even
were
says right here.
amazed.
It says we're talking about college level pre-calculus and calculus
Right.
classes, and students cannot even add 1/2 and 1/3.
Correct. That's what I was talking about earlier. Yeah.
This is a
It's really
George
possible.
Mason.
So that's right. George Mason was the other school. It was Stanford, George Mason, and CSU Humboldt. I'm sorry, I didn't say their new name. CSU Poly Humboldt. That was the three
Wow.
schools in the article that I read in our higher education publication here in California. Same thing, and it's alarming. Education engineering schools are particularly concerned about it. Yeah,
I think so.
yeah, because
I think we need engineers to know math. I don't know.
especially the schools that, like Boise State has a great engineering school. They have kind of designed themselves to take students at a lower level of math already and make them engineers. They're just amazing like that. But they see they're going to have trouble, and they got to do things in their curriculum. They might have to extend students a fifth year because of their math proficiency issues that they can't pass the incoming. They don't. The debate was should we change the math test for the engineering school, and they're not
Right.
going to change it. They're going to just take a beating and find out these students that got accepted to the university that can't do math.
But this
And that's
gets me when I see them say things like, we can't change their preparation coming in, but we can work to meet the needs in the best way possible. Okay, hold the phone. Aren't you supposed to apply to get into college?
correct.
Isn't one of the things that you have to demonstrate either through your grades or your standardized test scores or both that you have the proficiency to do the college work? Isn't that like a
But
baseline
notice, Deb,
requirement?
notice the colleges that are featured. You said George Mason, right? So George Mason doesn't even require the SAT at all now. So they
Well,
wouldn't.
maybe
They
that's
wouldn't
the
learn that, and
problem.
that's why, like MIT and some other schools are bringing the SAT back. They're starting to
think
figure
they
it out.
probably
They're bringing
should.
it back. Chapman just decided to bring it back out here.
Yeah, I think that's probably important when you consider. I saw this the other day
Go ahead.
on Twitter from Austin Scholar. Half of
Oh,
our
let me see that.
graduating seniors score the exact same on standardized tests as the highest performing third graders.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. There it is.
Spring mathematics student achievement percentiles. So we got 12th grade, 234. And then we got, oh, look, third grade. The highest performing third graders, the same as the highest performing 12th graders.
Some of
So
them, yeah.
9
Right.
years,
Yes.
nothing happened
Nothing happened.
in math.
Or was gotten to and lost. Whatever.
Yeah, this is like seriously a problem. So there's that. And then we get to things like perhaps you saw about the AMC. This went out about how the AMC 12A test, this was this past week, November 7th, was compromised over the weekend. Oh, you didn't see this?
No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this is a math test, as I understand.
Right.
This is an integrity issue concerning leaked AMC 1012A 2023 exam. It's come to our attention, the MAA board of directors, as well as that of the wider mathematical community, that there has been a significant breach of confidentiality regarding the upcoming AMC 1012A. Discussions on the art of problem solving forums have surfaced along with concrete evidence suggesting the details of the exam were prematurely disclosed to the public, etc. The ramifications of such an incident are manifold, casting a shadow over the fairness and credibility of the competitions, a keystone of the Mathematical Association's global standing and its advocacy for mathematical excellence, and so on. And so basically, they were having to petition to get them to either change the test. This is a change.org petition to either change the test or postpone the test. And it is my understanding that they declined.
Oh, they'll just take it like it is.
They were just gonna give it anyway.
Let's go ahead and just take it. Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and do it. You know, it's out there and people might be
MC, the mathematics competition. Yeah, I know about
that.
I heard of that, but yeah, I didn't know about this.
And then I decided, I'm gonna go over there to the MAA. I'm gonna go over there to the MAA because we were sort of jokingly hanging out on their Twitter thing. It says Happy National STEM Day from MAA. This is the next day. Embrace your inner innovator and explore the world of endless possibilities. What is the one thing you would tell someone to and so we have this learn Bertonian norms and philosophy of science and practice it. Don't cheat. Embrace failure. And then we have like a bunch of things about don't cheat, show your work, because they were going to go ahead and do it anyway. And then I thought, I'm going to take a look at their website.
Oh, good.
And I did a little search.
What'd you find?
Equity. I searched on equity. Here's what I found. We have a book, Merging Numeracy with Literacy Practices for Equity.
There you go.
I have a Lens of Calculus, Framing New Possibilities for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion.
There we go.
Mini courses. These are mini courses in Introduction to Becoming a Math Jedi, Justice, Equity, Diversity.
There we go.
Making the mathematical and statistical sciences communities more inclusive
requires their members. That over. I want to go there and read that over tonight.
I mean, this is like, these are just a bunch of mini classes, and then going back to more of the equity stuff, sessions featuring diversity, equity, and inclusion, and so on. So this is even in math. You go to the physics society, you'll find same stuff. In STEM, it's now leaking in. And so my question for you as a math guru, as my math guru, is like, is this what the Mathematics Association of America should be focused? I'm not saying like, don't do it. Freedom of speech, write papers on equity. Okay, go ahead. But it feels to me like they're focusing a lot on this stuff.
That's right. I think I peeked at that site during the pandemic and saw it going. I tell you, this Floyd thing changed a lot, Deb. I guess they're taking a deeper dive than they were when I saw it in the pandemic. No, I don't agree with all this equity stuff getting in STEM. And again, it's back to the way we started this. I mean, this is a major national security issue that
Right.
we don't seem to be able to understand that, there's one way to do the derivative of x squared and you can't get around it. And that's a problem. And so, no,
Yep.
I don't like the MAA's gotten that way. Fortunately, there are a few other math support organizations that are
Yeah.
sticking to their guns, but I don't like equity. We used to say, there's some well-known broadcasters used to say, hey, look, math and engineering and science are immune to this equity stuff, and this was pre-Floyd. But now you're seeing it everywhere. I would like to
Yep.
see what a social justice curriculum for calculus looks like.
Exactly. Well, now that you mention it, since you're curious what that might, I mean, I don't know what it would look like for calculus, but have you ever been to this charming website?
Yeah, somebody shared it with me. Go ahead.
Yeah, but this
Oh,
is
wow. Yeah.
yeah, a pathway to equitable math instruction, resources and guidance to support Black, Latinx, and multilingual students to thrive in grades 6 through 8 specifically. This is middle school.
No.
An integrated approach to mathematics that centers their students addressing barriers to math
Yeah, that's like the
equity.
guy just said in that interview, racism in math instruction. Right. Sure.
Dismantling racism in mathematics instruction.
Wow.
Exercises for educators, struggle sessions, it sounds like, to reflect on their own biases to transform their instructional practice.
That sounds like
And
anti-racist stuff. Yeah.
here's the thing. And I brought this up to my daughter today. This again, we're talking about a 15-year-old at this point. And I said,
Hmm.
this is a thing. And she's like, you joking, right? I said, no, she's homeschooled now. So she doesn't believe any of the stuff
Right.
I tell her about public school anymore. And I said, no, it's a thing. And she says, so it's not like, I was in public school. She goes, I don't think they were doing word problems like, so Jeremiah picked a bushel of cotton, like she was joking around. She's like, I
No.
mean, if the word problems are still written like that, maybe we need to change them. I said, no, sweetheart, it's not like that.
Right. Right. Yeah. I'm going to delve more into maybe do a little cynical view of that curriculum. Like look up Stride One, do a video on that.
Yeah, because,
That's I need to
sustaining.
really take a dive into that because I have a couple of leaders in my church that don't believe me about this chance that equity stuff could get into the math. And I showed them the math framework concerns. They were a little bit enlightened with that.
Yeah.
Some of them think that teachers know best and the unions know best, and they're doing what
Well,
we think is needed. They think it's needed.
I'm very curious what this is. The instructional
You see,
priority. This is priority instructional content in English language
it's the
arts
same
literacy.
thing. Yeah.
So this is going back. Okay. So then this says the toolkit was developed by a team of teachers, instructional coaches,
Yeah.
researchers, professional development,
Uh-huh.
culture response pedagogy. See collaborator bios.
Oh, here we go.
Los Angeles County Office of Education, Ruth
Oh, they're
Basket.
into that, of course.
Do
Who's
you
that,
know
Ruth? Yeah, I know who this
Ruth?
is. Yeah,
Okay. So, and then we
I
have
know who
Roland
she is.
Baldwin, Unbounded Ed. We have Teach Plus. We have these people, and so on. And the thing is, there could be some really important stuff. Like, for example, English language learners in a school where the dominant language is English, and you're trying to teach math, and they don't speak the language. Yes, they have a special need that you have to
Sure.
learn how to. No one's going to dispute that. I'm not. Please don't hear me like making
Right.
any kind of jokes about that. That is serious. The other thing I'll also say is that if you have kids who aren't reading, who
Oh,
come
yeah,
to you in
that's a
6th
problem.
grade, this is a big problem in
It's
teaching
hard
math.
to learn math, right?
Very hard to learn math. And I remember watching some of the stuff with some of the people evaluating the framework, and they were saying, "Look, my problem as a high school math teacher is I got kids coming to me in 9th grade who can't read. So
Right.
what do I do?
Sure.
What do I do?" And I obviously don't have an answer for that. So I've long thought, tell me if you agree, that we've absolutely got to focus on not just the proficiency of math before 3rd grade, but the reading.
Oh, yeah.
And if we let kids go on to middle school and they're still not reading, it doesn't matter what subject you put. It's not just the reading. Math will be impacted too.
That will be a problem for sure. But when I see students that are struggling in math, uh, they can read. Now, I do occasionally see in special ed that's a major problem. I also see with my Hispanic students of immigrants that that's a problem in early grades. But
Okay.
with Black students I see in high school, they can read. You just need to teach them.
Oh, so okay, so these are the students you're working with. But
Yeah.
I mean, what
But
what do you
wait, I should say this is not to say they don't have reading issues, because when I get those students in SAT and I'm teaching critical reading, Deb, I often see they're having basic comprehension issues.
I
But I don't
see.
think it's enough to make a problem to relieve the teacher of most of the credit or discredit for them not learning math. I think that
Right.
they could still learn math. But you're right. I do see, you read a simple sentence, what's it saying? Because in the SAT, you have to have in critical reading the skill of being able to pull it
Sure.
from the text, because the
Sure.
answers are all in the text. They're not in their head or subject. They're in the actual paragraph they're reading.
Right.
So yeah, I do
Well, even
see basic comprehension issues now.
even in the SAT problems with math, a lot of times
Oh
the
yeah,
math problem is written in words, and if you misread the question, you'll pick the wrong answer. And a
yeah,
fair
I would say there are about, I don't know, 7 to 10% of the more wordier questions of SAT. Most SAT math questions are quite short because they want to see if you can reason. But the longer ones, you're right. Hey, let's make sure we understand it. So we have things like bite-sized pieces to cut it up and all that. And I notice that students still sometimes struggle. They don't see it
Yeah.
and it's right in front of them when it's a longer problem. You're right. I do see that.
Yeah. And I've even dealt with, because I tutor kids when they're applying to college with their essays. And these
Oh,
are these
I
are
saw
these
your
are
tweet. I think I reached out to you when you were talking about that. Go ahead.
yeah. But when they, they're I'm looking at these essay questions and all this kind of stuff. And and I would say the number one problem they have is
What do you
not
say?
answering the prompt.
Oh, don't. I know we don't want to go on a tangent with this, but I gotta say,
Go, please.
can I please say something about that?
Please do.
It is primarily why they need us to review it.
Yeah.
I had a young lady the other night. There's two different problems. Sometimes they want to be creative writers and doing
Yes.
artwork. So it's kind of like the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. They want to get all flowery. So you got that kind of problem. And I'm like, what did the prompt ask? You're not answering it. Oh, yeah, you're right. I love doing that. And the other thing is, I noticed flat out just write me one big long paragraph that does no structure, didn't answer the question.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know what to say.
Well, they're
I love
teaching.
when I review it, I'll say, hey, you started off saying new edition. A new edition concert was your most important event, but by the end, you were talking about a party you went to afterwards. Its focus becomes a problem, but you're right. They're not answering the prompt.
They're not answering prompt and or
Or the
but
question behind the prompt, whatever.
what you're identifying though is about the narrative when they want to tell a story and they want to make everything like the great American novel in
You
their
can't
essay.
do that with college essays all the time.
No, you can't. Because they focus so much now on narrative building in English class and
Good
telling a
point. Good
story,
point.
using their voice and expressing themselves and their feelings and show don't tell. And now look, show don't tell is an important skill to learn in writing. But when you have to write a personal statement like please let me into your college because I want to be a student there, you can't write them, this just flowery story that isn't
You
even
know,
about you.
Deb, thank you for cutting. You made me think of, because I looked at, again, dozens of these this year already. I, I think when they went in the Common App to have actual questions, universities moved away from write me a personal statement to having specific questions they thought it'd be easier. It actually made it harder.
Definitely.
'Cause
Definitely
they don't
did.
answer the question.
They don't answer this question. They're not, or they don't know what to say because they have to talk about themselves, which is something they don't do really at all. I mean, it's so funny. We have these kids
Yeah, you're
focused on
right.
their navels all day long, but they don't actually have an inner life. Their whole life is they're outside, what other people say about them, to them, etc. And they don't really get time to
Totally
just think
agree.
of what they think. And this may be far afield from math, but I genuinely
No,
believe I d no, I j but I
it's
was
not.
about to say how it's connected
It's not.
is that so much of what
Yeah.
ails all of our kids, and this is not race specific.
Yeah.
I just think it's amplified perhaps in some communities because, to your point, there are other things going on besides
Sure.
outside the school. And that is that they don't get the point. So in other words, we have sort of failed to we've spent so many decades telling our kids that education was about getting a job or education was about getting into college. It's always about the next step. And we don't teach them to take an education. We don't teach them that education is going to be something they own, that no one can take away from them, that's going to be with them wherever they go. And it will actually it will help them figure out who they are. And yes, that even includes math. And so they think, well, when am I going to use this in my daily life? It's like, that's not what it's about. It's not about just, I'm going to use this in my daily life. It's about how you approach things you don't know how to do, how you go about solving problems, how you go about asking
Reasoning,
for help,
logic. Yes.
all of that logic, reasoning, there's applied math, there's theoretical math, there's all the things that you're going to learn who you are in this process. You're not just going to learn how to do stuff. You're going to become yourself. And this is what they don't get to do because they're so busy being told, well, you're a this, box check, box check,
Right.
box check,
Right.
box check. And so they think it's all pragmatic. And then when you teach math in this fluffy, flowery way, where the right answer, maybe the right idea, then they're double down on, I'll just look it up. I'll just ask Siri to do it. I'll just ask Alexa to do it. I don't, if I don't need to get the right answer, I'm not going to pay attention. Why do I? And you've made it irrelevant to me.
Yeah, they go that.
And
Keep
they
going
think
that
they're
way.
making it
Yeah.
more relevant. They're
Yeah.
making it less relevant,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't linked the writing with this, the whole idea of that. Yeah, the narrative. That's very good. I'm gonna have to use that.
They actually will say to me, like, well, I
Sure.
don't know what to write about. And so I have to I would say 90% of the work I do with students
Just getting them started. Like teach
it's
them how
just
to
like
get started.
pulling stuff out. And you can see they like kind of gradually become aware of their own thoughts. Like, oh,
Correct.
for all
it's
the
a
talk about
yeah,
student voice.
yeah. It's a form of I hadn't thought of it, but it's a form of teaching. Teach them how to start their essay and then let them
Yes.
roll. Let them roll their way with their voice.
Well, because what they've been taught is your feelings are facts.
Oh
Your
yeah, they
feelings
write like this.
so then
Yeah.
it's totally fine if all you do is express your opinions. So your opinions are basically in their minds anyway, like the feelings I have put into words. There. My
Yeah.
reactions to things put into words.
Right.
They
Right.
don't actually
Right.
think about stuff. And so now when you have to sit down and do math, which requires thinking, it absolutely requires it. There's no shortcut around
No.
thinking in really any subject, but especially math. If they don't automatically get it, I think they're more likely to check out if you are going to come at them with well, it's anti-racist math. Well, it's equity. Well, let's,
Mm,
whatever. Now, to a certain degree, I'm talking out of turn because I haven't personally witnessed one of these lessons. I read some examples in the math framework draft. I read some of the word problems
sure.
and I read some of it, and my eyes were rolling in the back of my head.
And I've read some of them in the materials for my CSU math for the summer, and I didn't use it, but I'm going, really? Are we gonna? No. I felt that. Yeah, I mean, it's not on the point of math. It's part of that mindfulness stuff coming in too. Imagine yourself here and there.
Now, can you remember any examples that you found particularly strange as a math teacher?
Oh,
Let's
okay.
say
I'm glad to do it. When I did,
Yeah.
there were like 7 different ones in equity math they wanted us to use this summer. I didn't end up using any, but I let my people look at one of them. And I'll tell you the one ironically that was good, but I can give you a couple ones that were weird. They had
Yeah.
one where it's so condescending. I'm afraid to mention. I'm almost embarrassed. But this is
for
for
it.
serious too. I'll send it to you if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Where they had this young lady with cornrows in her hair
Yeah.
was in concentric circles. And they said, but let's compute the mathematics on it and how will it, and they had questions, how will this help the hairdresser? And then questions like, how does the young lady feel, do you think? And this is in math. And how does it relate to how does her skill relate to her mathematical understanding? And I wish you could see the question. I'm going like, really? I'm going to teach that? I said, really, the students might laugh at me. But then again, if I teach it the way, and it was, get this, the person leading the workshop, Deb, check this out. He was this is a pretty good dude. He's a black professor at CHU Long Beach, but he wasn't from the math department.
Yeah.
He was an ethnic studies, black history teacher. And I'm going, oh my God. And my leaders were with me for summer program. I leaned over and said, we're not doing this. But they were cracking up. When he do a different example, I go, no, we're not doing this. They had another one where, this is serious. I'm trying to be serious. I should look at you. You'll make me laugh. But anyway, but they had one serious, everybody. Listen, this is serious. They had one where I guess it was supposed to be a probability problem.
Okay.
Where they showed historically accurate, let's be honest, the routes that black slaves took coming to the Americas. And apparently way more went to South America and Central America than America. That's true. That's actually true.
Yes.
But they tried to, what's the math model? Let's model it mathematically. And then but the questions weren't about math. They were like, what effect do you think this had on the development of black learning in the United States? I'm like, I don't know. How did it differ across the different diasporas? And I'm like, what? I'm supposed to teach that? And the backup materials were all this black history stuff and all that. I leaned over to Larry and said, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. But the one I picked will shock you. I liked it. And I could have did it with any other culture probably too, which is another reason I liked it. I liked the lesson that and my people were shocked. They were like, really? I said, you can use that one if you want. One of my teachers used it as a side exercise when they were done. And It was the way Igbo math works with the Nigerians. It's based on 20s. And I thought it was good because it made them do mental math.
Well, see, now that's cool.
See, that's cool. I like that.
And that actually is something, like you said, you could teach that to any kid.
Sure. And the kids will have a lot of fun with
cool thing.
Yeah, they did it in one of the pre-algebra group. And it was fun to them. But this other stuff, Deb.
That's like teaching kids how to use an abacus. Like if you wanted to be sort of culturally relevant for Chinese, for Chinese culture, and you say, hey, this is, let's learn to use an abacus, which is a really good math skill. It's not something we necessarily do in the West, but Chinese kids, this is what they do. Right. And that's a good skill for anybody. Sure. Why not?
Sure. I had a teacher used to teach my summer program. Guess what he did? I was like, no, that's not going to work. Brother man came in there, Deb. It was teaching them to use the slide rule.
I love slide.
My God. I went, and they're learning fractions, proportions.
Yes.
And they made them do their final project on it. I was like, cool. That's a good lab skill.
Yes.
Like lab, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But
that's see, like if I hear the term culturally relevant, I think is material that connects the learning to how the culture in which you live, the actual Western culture, whatever.
Yes.
Like, you know how stuff got built before we had computers? We had to use slide rules. Let's learn that. That's culturally relevant, and then you might really
appreciate it. By it. It was funny. They were fascinated. I'm like,
of course they were.
I was seeing kids that were failing math. They're like nerdy learning how to use it.
Oh, for sure.
Like, wow. I think that's pretty cool. And that gets us going in that direction. Hey, look, you know what I used to do too in the summer? I did it when I was teaching summer, but I have teachers doing it now. I did let's take a trip. Let's plan the budget. Let's do research. Let's do a spreadsheet. Let's plan it out. And they had a lot of fun with that because I do things like you're exceeding your budget. What about your budget? And, you haven't asked for an increase. And look, you're 20% over. And, but that's not the class, but that's like a lab skill.
Sure.
Because they're learning about math models in class and learning about word problems. Anyway,
But
I
that's
think
no,
that,
I love that story. But that's relevant. And but their definition, when they talk about things like anti-racist math or equity math,
yeah,
it seems like their definition is all centered. It's like race-based. It seems to, they talk about centering and so on.
yeah,
And
centering,
I just don't, I feel like it puts the kids more at risk of getting disinterested in math, feeling condescended to, feeling pressure.
correct.
Like I said, if you hold up, look, this is a person who's great, like I said, great at math, and they look like you. That would have done nothing for me. And I mean, people might say, well, that's because you're white.
Mm,
And again, I'll point to the 47.5% for the supposedly supremacist culture is only reproducing,
yeah, 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 yeah.
47% of
That's good.
that's if that's good in a supremacist culture, I don't know, but I it's a joke. That's
Yeah,
not the issue. That's just not the issue. So what I'm worried about is I'm worried about kids who don't have somebody like you, uh, or their parents want somebody like you, but they can't find somebody like you where they live. Um, they've only got this. This is what they've got. The kids in Pittsburgh, they're gonna go to school, and if this doesn't work for them, there is no other way. And I just find it's so funny. The same people that tell me, well, we can't have a one size fits all solution. I'm like, but you just bought one for 50
right,
grand.
right. 50
And
grand.
no, it's just a way that the teacher can engage them. Like, but you're assuming so many very personal things about these students rather than actually you engage with the student. So you're worried about the student engaging with the material. Here's an idea. You engage with the student. You get to know the individuals, those little individual humans in your
Yes,
class.
right.
They are unique. They're not the 5 black kids in my class. They're, this person, this person, this person, that person. And when you do that and you observe how they are and how they learn and how they interact, like, then you can, if you're a skilled teacher, like I know you do in your programs, you come up with the plan to suit that particular group of kids or that particular individual.
Right.
You don't just go, hey, 50 grand, I went to a seminar and now I'm going to come into my class and do this.
Yeah, and
It
that's
doesn't
really
work.
a good point. And in the enrichment world, when we do the summer program, I've turned down teachers who don't get that. They're these great teachers. Well, why don't you hire them? Because they don't see that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to see that. And don't you think, Deb, that we might be beginning to reach critical mass? Because now what's happening is parents are leaving the school districts. They're leaving the school districts. It's causing funding problems. Talking to Rex over in San Francisco about this. It's beginning to cause budget problems. The smart parents in Pittsburgh will go, this is weird. I think I would take my kids out, black and white.
Well, here's the other thing though.
What do you
Let's
think?
say I think they will, but I think then you're going to have groups of people, politicians, business leaders, colleges, all these people rushing in to fix that problem. They call it a problem. We had already, John Oliver did his little show about, oh, so many people are homeschooling. This is terrible. We're not going to know we're not going to know what they're learning.
Mhm.
And so what I worry about is people are going to start trying to treat the funding problem for the public schools by pushing back on homeschooling or we're pushing back on those parents, or they're going to try to come up with universal school choice that, I'm not against education freedom, but I'm definitely against the government growing bigger and having a brand new bureaucracy to
Yeah, me too.
mismanage.
Me
So
too.
if keep it, if you're gonna keep the public schools, if you're really insistent, we got to have them. Like focus on making them better and don't just expand government power. Let the people who want to leave. Maybe even let them take their money with them. Like literally, check a box and go. Don't take my tax money or a percentage of my tax money and just let me go. And don't create a brand new government bureaucracy because they're not doing a great job as it is with the stuff they've got. And then I'm worried about the same kids, even the ones that get pulled out, whether they do supremely well, like they're homeschooled and they are just taking off like a rocket, or they come to you and they get great. And then the colleges have to
Right.
receive the majority of their students that are coming and are still coming from the broken system.
Still.
So They're lowering their standards. They're bringing everything else down. So your great kids that graduate your program. Now, I'm glad that you're helping them pick the schools to go to that are going to help them the best, right?
Yeah.
But if they just, apply to college and go to college because I want to go to Harvard, I want to go here, and they end up there, they might be frustrated that they're spending their time and their money, whatever, in a program that's been brought down to meet the needs of all the
Yeah. I'm afraid of that too.
everything gets suppressed.
Yeah, I'm afraid of it spreading to college too. This concept,
Yeah.
and again, that's that national security thing. Now
Yeah.
you're producing STEM graduates that are some subpar, that aren't creating new things, creating new processes.
Right.
There's
And that
no,
is,
and other countries will begin to lead that.
or all the students that come into the MITs and the programs and the tech schools will be international students who don't
Yeah, you're
stay.
already seeing that. Good point.
They come and then they leave, and but that problem. So I feel like the whole process, or the whole, if we're going to deal with this, we have to get back to focusing on the teaching of math as the teaching of math. And we need math teachers who are subject matter experts at math. Maybe I don't know what that looks like as far as how we get people who are math experts, because there's so many higher paying jobs that they might not want to go be math teachers. So maybe it's a matter of I don't know, we'll forgive your student loans if you go teach for a while. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily follow that if you're good at math that you're going to be a good teacher of math. I mean, there's a better chance than than the teachers who don't know math at all. But what I think would be good, tell me what you think of this. What if you have people who are not particularly good at math, like me, but who are good at getting to understand students and getting students to open up about what they do and don't understand? So they would got those good skills as far as pulling out from the kid, like, I need help with XYZ, who could then help pair them with the math subject matter experts to get their needs met, get their questions answered. If you had a team situation like that in a grade, in a classroom, so that you could bring in people who are just super excellent at math, but maybe they don't read kids as well, or they don't, they're not really sure how to design the lesson per se, but they know how to do the math,
Hey,
and they could help work together.
that's a great model. There are a couple of private schools out here. It's just ironic, both from a Christian school. There are a couple of private schools out here that are doing that. They'll
Really?
have
Okay.
a mathy person there, and then a teacher that sort of observes processes and manages the class, kind of like a class manager. And you have this
Right.
guru that jumps around helping the kids with their problems. And
Right.
the teacher does some too, but
Sure.
and that's what the teacher is there for, that second part of observing the students and communicating with
But
the
I
parent.
just think we've got to
But
get
it's
back to
private schools,
traditional.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, the
And
private schools are doing it.
and they really need to turn to the community in some cases to get the authoritative minds to work in the community on working with these kids after hours and on weekends. I really think that's going to be a key. This trial program with the LUSD, we're going to see how it works out. I'm kind
Tell
of
us about that. Tell us about what you're doing, because we talked before
Yeah,
the show about what you're working on now. Tell me what's going on.
apparently they're going to come up with grants for community-based organizations that have experience, and
Okay.
they're targeting churches and organizations like mine. And I first wasn't going to do it, but I got to thinking about it. I'm going to do it because I think I see a way to begin this process of getting the community as instructor to help these Black students, because I'm concerned that they're clueless on what to do about it, Deb. And I want to see us be partners with the schools, and I see an opportunity through this grant. And so what it's going to do is it's going to allow me to propose ways to strengthen math instruction away from the classroom, to get them ready for college, SAT, and things like that. I think it forms a laboratory for great mentoring of these students to show them how to do math. And I'm not going to have one strand of that equity stuff in my stuff. Not going to happen.
Do you get students, when students come to you, and even if they end up being pretty good at math or they're decent students, do you ever have some where you think to yourself, I don't know that this kid should go to college per se?
That's happening more and more as the reality of society sets in.
Yeah.
I'm going to a workshop next week run by, of all people, Google. Google setting up some classes in the city. Remember, they
Okay.
announced that 1/3 of the people they hire will not have degrees. And so I'm very interested in that program. I have a lot of students that shouldn't go to college yet, but are very competent, good students. So I think that's going to happen more and more. It's already happening on my program. I had a couple students. I sent them to one of them's doing air conditioning repair, and he's making lots of money working as a subcontractor for a major contractor. I have
Right.
lots of students that go into things like cosmetology. Cosmetology. That doesn't sound right. Yeah, I guess it is cosmetic. And various other things where I think they can get good careers, especially now that we're raising the hourly wages, we're cheapening liberal arts degrees. Because now the hourly wages are 25 and 30 an hour that they're negotiating in, and they find they have to pay because of the inflation in society. I think we're going to see a further cheapening of the private school liberal arts degree, Deb. So I think I'm going to be recommending that more and more. And remember, I told you we're the Education and Enrichment Program. I never embraced the enrichment part until I took that famous trip to DC. I have a video about it where I visited the Frederick Douglass house. I have to talk
Yeah.
to you about it some other time.
Yeah, definitely.
He was a self-taught guy. And
Yep.
I figured out, he was self-taught. And he's my hero, Frederick Douglass.
Yeah.
And I realized the days that I think every student should go are probably going and gone. The cost of private colleges, they've lowered they really reduced. I guess I learned something about economics, didn't I? You can cheapen something by making it not needed.
That's right. Well, and you can also when you make it just a rite of passage, like it's a high school diploma.
That's right.
Then it ceases to have the same value that because it's oh well, everyone's getting one. And college was never intended, college, university, whatever you call it, advanced degrees beyond high school, they were never intended to be for everyone.
That's right. That was a reason.
Even in an
You're right.
egalitarian society, they
You're
weren't
right.
in the first place
You're
as a
right.
credential.
You're
As a
right.
credential, they really were initially intended for people who either planned to go on to a graduate school to teach. So you had to be a subject matter expert. So if let's say you went to a liberal arts college and, after then the idea was you were going to go on to the law, medicine, engineering. There were a few professions where you would need that degree to sort of get from high school to a level of depth of study that you can't do in high school, right? So you got to get to a level of scholarship
Right.
that you then would go and get your graduate degree or whatever. Now you can you're a deep subject matter expert in that thing, and you go do that thing, or you teach it. Those were kind of like the areas.
Right.
But then it became like, well, you have to have a degree because, to get a job. And I would ask people, even when I was in college, but why though? Like, why do I need this? It was like, well, to show that you're an educated person. And I'm thinking like, but I am an educated person. I went to high school and I read all these books and then they're saying, okay, but why do I need it for you to even consider interviewing me for this administrative assistant job? Right. It's like, or whatever, human resources generalist or something. And they never had an answer. It was like, well, it's to show that you can finish something and stick with it, whatever. I'm like, wow, that's a very expensive way for me to demonstrate for you that I can start something and finish it. Like
in some cases, very expensive.
It's ridiculous. And that was when I went to college, it was 13 grand a year. And that was considered expensive. And now it's like obscene. So to this day, people will ask me, well, aren't you glad you went though? And don't you think blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, well, okay, let me put it to you this way. I was spoiled rotten. So I didn't have to pay for my own school and I didn't have to take out debts. So take out loans. So I got the college education painlessly in that respect. I mean, I was a good student. I worked hard and everything. But if I had been like how most kids are today, and I now look at it in the hindsight of like, was it worth it if I had to pay for it?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Hell no. It was a luxury. It was a luxury. It was a 4-year luxury extra thing that, sure, I'm glad I had it. Like you'd be glad you went on a nice vacation to Disneyland or something. Like I wouldn't give it back. But if you came to me today and said, would you recommend it to other people because of that? I'm like, not if someone isn't giving it to them as a gift, not if that, and I would add to that, that
Mhm.
I think it held me back in some respects because when I did graduate, I was 4 years behind people who just went to work. I wasn't
Oh,
qualified.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. Good
I
point.
wasn't qualified to do
I've
diddly
seen
squat.
that. I've seen that. Like in
Yeah.
nursing, the ones that get the 4-year nursing degree and don't get their CNA and LVN, like I advise them to do while they're getting their degree, come out and
Yep.
guess who teaches them when they go to the hospital? The CNAs and
Yeah.
LVNs teach them for 2 or 3 years because they
You're
don't know nothing.
behind. And it's
It's insane.
the same is happening with computer science now. So we've got all this
Right.
math till you get the you're that's why I asked you because you have the math students and they're all different kinds of math careers. So like I'm just gonna stick with the computer science one. And let's face it, you need to be pretty good at math to do computer science. You don't have to
Yeah.
be as good at math maybe to be different other kinds of, jobs, but you still have to be
Sure.
better than average at
Mhm.
math.
Mhm.
And so, but when I say computer science, I'm not talking about you're going to go be a computer scientist, like invent new AI stuff. I'm talking about you want to be a full stack developer. And I want to go and I want to write code and I want to have a job building things with code. You do not need to go to college for that. And
It's
yet
clear.
I'm seeing kids come to me
Clear.
time and time again for essay help. And I go, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to study computer science. Saying, oh, do you want to learn about building, AI and algorithms?
You want to design a computer? Do you want to, oh no, I just want to do apps.
I want to write code, build apps. I'm
You
like,
can learn that.
and you're going to go to a school that's between 60 and 80 grand a year, where the
No,
people teaching you are teaching you stuff from at least last year. Like it's
no,
not
that's a
current.
problem.
And I'm sitting there recommending they take a look at boot camps and take a look at other things. And they'll be, 6 months. You're if you do well, I'm not saying it's
Sure.
easy. It's not easy,
Sure. I
but it's
got a
way
couple kids can
cheaper.
already write code. They're seniors. They're writing
And
code.
and they think they have to go to college, and it's like the biggest scam in the world. Or then I finally got one kid to admit, I said, okay, the question on the essay was, what will a successful college experience look like for you? And I said, be honest, be honest.
Hmm.
He said, I want to get away from home. I want to go
See,
somewhere different. And I'm like,
see,
okay, this is a very expensive way to get out of your mom's house.
very.
I was like, so we've got kids not only not learning the subjects to the level of depth to prepare them to do college level work, but then going to college when maybe they shouldn't even go, and then the debt, and they can't even do math well enough to sit down with the loan officer, the financial aid people
Sure.
and loan people. They can't do the math well enough in their head to go compounded interest. Yeah,
Yeah, how
no,
much is it gonna cost? Yeah,
I'm not doing that. And
yeah.
that's where they get them is, that basic math skill of just, this is a good value. And no, it's not. It's not a good value. It's a ripoff.
Yeah, and Deb, all of this is before the indoctrination. We haven't even considered the indoctrination that occurs when they get there. We're not going to talk about that today. On top of
Yeah.
that, there could be a negative.
Right, exactly. So Texas Sheep Lady wants to know what you think about these problems as far as they became universal so everyone could get brainwashed. So I think what she's saying is, that they wanted everyone to go to college so that they could teach them certain things, cultural
Kind of
things.
like what I was talking about just now. Yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely think that Texas Sheep Lady. I like that. Anyway, Texas Sheep Lady. I like that. That you're right. There is kind of an agenda to get the kids thinking a certain way, and of course that's coming out big time now. We're paying a price for that right now. What's happening in the Middle East on our campuses?
Right,
Deb and I have been talking about that offline. It's a
right,
huge issue. So but that problem's always been there. Students
right.
coming home and acting crazy for things
That's
they
right.
learned in college, and I do a lot
How
in
is
my
that
program to get them ready for that. But it
how is
does.
that specifically affecting Black students? Because I've seen like BLM
There you
jump
go.
on board with all this stuff, and I gotta
Absolutely.
believe that the kids that you work with
Right.
probably feel very strange and conflicted because
Major.
to the extent that they feel
Sure.
like they're supposed to be aligned with BLM, but then now when BLM says we have the same causes, these group of people from a place you never been, you don't know anything about, you've got no ties to it, and that's got to be like an extra thing for
Yes.
them.
And some have called me and asked me, and that's why I produced the two videos right away, October 8th and October 11th, And a lot of my students have seen those when I'm trying to break it down, tell them to calm down, you know. And I was at Howard with some students last week. I
Right.
have to do a separate video on that, but Deb, they closed down class for 2 days. The president kept quiet for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I'm sorry, let me calm down. For 3 weeks, didn't say a word. Right across town at GW, the next hour they condemned it.
Yeah, and
You're right.
it's
That is a problem in our community. We feel that we're in adjacent or intersection with the Hamas, and we're not.
well, it's
I'm
ironic, isn't it?
concerned we
Because
feel intersecting with Hamas. I mean, it's crazy. So yeah, that
for
BLM
the
has
same
affected.
people pushing the equity math and pushing all the DEI
It's the same
and saying
thing.
we need to learn a true history.
Mhm.
If they learned the true history of the civil rights movement, they would learn that Jews, okay,
They're part of the
Jewish
movement.
people
They were
were a
part of the
huge
movement.
part of the civil rights
Well,
movement.
that's why a lot of black leaders are paralyzed. They're not saying,
Yeah.
"Let's have you haven't heard from some black leaders, have you? Have you heard anything from what's the name of MSNBC? It's a shame I drew a blank. You
Don
haven't heard
Lemon.
from, huh? Well,
Don
not
Lemon.
Lemon.
Oh.
Yeah, you know who he is.
Oh, like Al
Al
Sharpton and those
Sharpton. Haven't
kind of
heard
guys.
nothing, have
Yeah.
you?
No.
They're keeping quiet, aren't they?
No. But I went to a rally
They
a
don't know
couple
what
weeks
to say.
ago.
They don't know what to say.
I heard from Dusamani Washington, though. I heard
Uh-oh.
from Pastor Washington.
I didn't
Do you
hear
know
from
him?
him. What's up?
So
What did
no,
he say?
he came to our rally. He came to the rally here in Charlotte, and he
All
gave
right.
a very
Okay.
passionate speech
Good.
about the civil rights movement and about the role that Jewish people played in
All right.
assisting the
So
the
that's
civil
right.
rights movement, about Martin Luther King, and
Yes.
oh
Okay.
no, he spoke the truth about the civil rights movement, and the thing is though that you've got kids in high school that are not going to hear from him
No.
necessarily,
No.
and so they don't know, and they're for all this let's teach true history, they're completely oblivious to this. Same with, we talked before we came on the air about Milton Friedman,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Same thing. Yeah.
this is a guy who
Yeah.
was like screaming from the rooftops how the minimum wage was going to hurt black people, and he was right.
Right. Right.
So
There you
but
go.
they're
There you go.
and then we have Moose. I don't know how to say this. Musi one. I'm working on it now. BLM is a Marxist organization run by self-proclaimed witches and trained Marxists. We have nothing to do with feminist, Marxists, and LGBTQ.
Yes.
Um,
Hey,
s-
sounds a little harsh, but it's not wrong. What's up there? That person's a very direct communicator.
yes.
It is Marxist. I mean, they're
Yep,
self-proclaimed. They know it.
exactly.
They know they're Marxists. Anytime you do when you hear, I told my students last week who called me, I told students on travel with me, seniors that are with me, see in school, when you hear oppressor and oppressed, it's someone that's Marxist. That's
For sure.
spelling
That's
Marxist,
critical theory.
the Marxist
Definitely.
principle, right?
Definitely it is.
That,
So then this person is asking me, but I want to ask you, do you have any recommendations for math and English teacher for homeschoolers? So let's just focus on the math because we're here. And the answer, Marshmallow Minion, is yes, I do. And I can, answer those questions for you, offline if you want. You can email me at thereasonwelearn@gmail.com. I can give you recommendations for English, but let's talk about math. People who are, I'm sure you've encountered parents who have left the system, whatever.
Sure. Oh yeah.
What are you currently recommending to people
Great.
who want to give the kids, especially the kids who have come out of the public school? So in other words, we're not starting with kindergartners going, I'm
It
homeschooling
is
from
left.
scratch.
It is left. Yeah.
Right, but they've left, and so now you're dealing with like maybe the skills they learned were not like super up to snuff, but now the parents are doing it themselves. What do you recommend?
So we have a partnership with IQ Math Academy here. Unfortunately, they love us, and I have 6 or 7 parents using that for their math, and they let our tutors, I'm gonna call them tutors, they are my workers, work with
What's it
them on
called?
their
What's it
IQ.
called?
I have workers in my math program who are contractors with me that are trained to work with. I work with IQ Academy students.
IQ. Okay.
Yeah, and those students, we know the curriculum back and forth, so we know what they're going to be learning. We also do it organically too. We use byu.edu, which is accepted everywhere, and they're very inexpensive courses. And we've learned the curriculum. We just have someone like us, and we tutor them through that class where they're forced to learn it, and it's very effective. They've gone on to college and done well.
Okay.
So
Now,
IQ Math Academy is a good one though. They're national.
that is national. They can use
Yeah,
it outside of California.
yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
For my part, what I usually recommend to people, like if you're just starting out at homeschooling and so you can start from scratch, I happen to like Singapore math, the original
Hmm.
Singapore math.
Hmm.
So not the California standards or the Discovery one or whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called now. It's a new one. But I really like the real original. You can get them used. You can get them used online, Christian Books and Rainbow and all the different homeschool sources. It's they do have cool little pictures and stuff that kids like for the little kids, but it's still
Oh, the
teaching
younger
them
ones. Yeah.
straight math. It's still like math. And then when you get to the upper grades, honestly, I mean, there are many different things that you can keep going with Singapore if you're comfortable with it. Another program that I like is called Math You See. So if you have a kid who is very visual and needs to see things, a certain way or use like blocks, for their math, I like Math You See, which is from Demme, Demme, and it has videos, and then like the lesson is taught on a whiteboard kind of deal, and then you can do the math yourself in a book. And I also like a program called Learn Math Fast. So if you've got a kid and
Mm.
they're in middle school or high school and fell behind for one reason or other, or like my one over there who was really good at certain things and getting A's in math in public school, but then came to me and said, "I don't understand fractions and I'm not sure how to calculate
Oh yeah,
percentages."
a lot of good things for that. Yeah.
Okay, right? So then we went backwards. We went to Learn Math Fast, and she was able to like just plow through, the book itself. The student could do it themselves, but it's like, here's how it works. Here's a million problems. Do the problems. Go through them until you get them right. And at
Hmm.
the end, you take the test. And if you get more than 3 wrong, you go back and redo it. But it's a way to go back to the traditional method for the people who have big gaps. Like, I'm doing okay in math, but I don't know how to do this thing over here.
Hmm.
Or like, I'm pretty good at geometry, but I stink at algebra, or vice versa. And you can make it up with Learn Math Fast. So those
Yeah.
are things that I've recommended, but it's going to depend on the individual kid. And if you have a program like what John has in Los Angeles,
They can partner
then
with you while you're doing it.
that's exactly right.
I
So
know I learned we're rare, but
yeah, you guys are
get a
rare.
program like us to partner while they're doing their homeschool. We have 100%. We get them through it.
How many kids do you serve now?
We're serving in some way about 800 families. We're directly serving at any one time 100 to 200. But there are a lot of people looking at my videos, writing me questions. Some days it feels like it too, Deb. But I have a great team that's surrounding me, like Praetorian Guard. And I'm trying to get myself to a point where I can somehow retire in 3 or 4 years. So, but I
You got
have
to
a
pass
great,
the torch.
yeah, I got to do that. But I do have a great team around me. I can make some quick
Yeah,
decisions at the top level and
that's good.
want to get the word out as much as
Yeah.
I can to parents how to improve their educational experience in the city, the state, and nationally. That's why I'm here.
So to summarize it though, like where have we come to? What have we decided? That the whole focus on equity or focus on racializing math instruction or making it somehow different because Black people is puts, as I said in the title, it kind of puts us all at risk, is my theory. Do you agree with that?
Totally agree. And I think it's, again, relieving Black students and Black families of getting it right and seeing they need to get better when you lower standards and take away things, give them the illusion they can be successful is actually a very cruel thing to do.
Well, they're arguing they're not lowering standards. It seems to me when they're challenged, as that gentleman did
Well,
in the
we're
video.
diluting it with other stuff, though.
Well,
Saying,
that's
"Hey."
the point, isn't it? Isn't that like, I agree. Like if you bring other things into it that aren't math
Mhm.
and you take up a bunch of time where you could have a 40-minute class and let's say you spend even half of it, and I've heard sometimes it's more than half of it you're talking about, like you said, the like, what do you think the impact of the slave trade going this way versus that way? When it's not to do with math.
No,
That's
it's not.
at most like some kind of weird social science sort of
That's what
conversation.
it feels like. And again, remember the guy doing the workshop and that created it. was a ethnic studies, Black culture history professor.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just don't think, I think the main fallacy of all of it is that somehow any person, not just a Black student, but any person somehow learns better when the subject is about this superficial thing about them.
Right.
That somehow makes the material more accessible, more, easier to grasp. And I think when you're talking about mathematical concepts, that is an even bigger reach than in any other
Right.
subject. How do you justify that? I don't get it. And I every time I've mentioned it to people who are on board with this stuff, they just poo-poo me and push me to the side, and you wouldn't understand because you're white. So stop. Just stop
No.
talking. Talk
And
to
I
me.
love it when I bring it up. They sort of don't answer me when I bring it up publicly. They kind of like
Like,
slide around me, act like I didn't say what I said. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad you came to join me. And then, yeah, well, you'll have to come back and talk to us about your Howard trip and see,
Yeah, I'm
let
gonna
us
do it.
know what
Yeah, I'm gonna
that's
do a
about, or
video.
make your own video. If
I'm doing a
you
video
don't,
and I'll share the link with you. I'll share the link with you.
yeah. So if you don't follow, John has his own YouTube channel, actually. And what's the address of that? Let us give them the address
West
of it.
Angeles Education and Enrichment Program.
West Angeles Education
I think
and
it's EEP.
it's
West
EP
Angeles, West
on
Angeles EEP.
on YouTube. I'm gonna go find it, and then I can just give them the link. But yeah, they need to follow you on YouTube also, because you come on and you just start talking. Sometimes you're just like, this is what I'm talking about today. And I've caught your videos about I've caught your videos about the protests and the BLM stuff, and when you
Right.
saw that, I made some comments. Why am I not
Yeah,
talking?
I did one of the Philadelphia riots. I got a lot of play. I got a call from some civil rights people in Philadelphia that weren't happy with me.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they weren't very happy about it.
What did they say?
You're just telling one side. No, I'm not. This lady went online and said, "Come on down here and riot." So I had to deal with it because I had students at Temple that had a roommate that was arrested and was upset. I said, "This is why they
Oh,
were arrested." So there you go. Thank you very much. So
West Angeles EP.
that's where I'm at. Feel
That's
free to go there.
crazy.
It's
So
crazy.
you're only presenting half of the story? Yeah, but the half I told is bad.
Terrible. Yeah.
That's the problem. Is like, what was the other half?
And that's how I know when they get upset that that was a pretty good video. Those ones that have a lot of views.
That's
When they get upset. I did one about the coming out week in LAUSD. They got 400 views, and I got some comments from people at UC. They didn't like what I said, but whatever.
Well, they're just, somebody's got to say it. And I think if teachers like you speak up, it makes a big difference. We see so much from the TikTok teachers and the unions and all that. And I know, and I said it on my show last week, I know there are teachers out there going, it's not me. Don't speak for me.
Right. Right.
But for a variety of reasons, and I understand, they can't, or they don't feel comfortable saying anything.
Right.
And so it's the impression is maintained that, all teachers agree with this, or most teachers agree with this. And it's too many. I grant you, it's way too many.
Mhm.
But there's people like you and
Right.
people like dissident teacher.
Yeah.
We love her.
Yeah.
But and y'all, if you're not following dissident teacher on Substack and on
Yeah, I
X,
know about her.
she's great. So I really am appreciative of your time and that you came and talked to us, because I saw that article about Pittsburgh and I went, oh, here we go.
Here we go.
I really thought the last time we met, John and I have done a couple other shows just alone, and then he's been a panelist on my teacher shows. So go back and watch those too. We've talked about this equity thing. I just kept thinking, this is a fad. This
No, I
government
think it's around. I thought maybe it would fade too, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be around.
And especially when parents started complaining, after COVID and whatnot, I was like, for sure, they're going to crack down on math first. Just like I thought math would be the last to go. I thought it'd be the first they'd crack down and fix it. And I was wrong.
Nope. It's a problem.
Big problem. So, all right, y'all. I so appreciate everybody who came tonight to listen to
Thanks,
us
Ted.
and check out John's channel, check out our other shows together. If you're not already subscribed, please do subscribe and like and share this video so people can watch the replay. I'll be back next week with a really important show. It's going to be recorded. It will be a premiere, but it features an actual Gen Z person who is coming to talk to us about the Gen Z real life experience. And that is not a voice that we get to hear from a lot. So I hope you'll
Nice.
set a little reminder for yourself to tune into that premiere.
Nice.
John, you're the best.
All right.
I will talk to you again soon.
Anytime. Anytime.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Bye-bye.